Today, we're gonna study the conflict management skills. Conflict management skill is very, very important, right? In your life, you use the conflict management skill. We're gonna learn in object or define interpersonal conflict today. Define interpersonal conflict. Identify commonly held myth about interpersonal conflict and compare and contrast the three types of interpersonal conflict. Next time we're gonna describe the relationship between conflict and power. Describe 5 conflict management styles and identify and use conflict management skills to help manage emotions, information, goals, and problems when attempting to resolve interpersonal difference. So today we focus conflict define, conflict myths, and conflict type. Okay? First, conflict define. Interpersonal conflict is a fact of life, right? Eventually, all relationships experience conflict. How can you best manage the inevitable conflict that occurs in your relationship with others? Conflict management is not single skill, but a set of skills. To manage conflict effectively involve more than learning simple techniques. The best route to success in resolving conflict effectively is acquiring knowledge about what conflict is, what makes it happen, and what we can do about it. Okay? So conflict define it's not working. Okay. Conflict defined. At the bedrock of all conflicts are difference in goals, needs, and experience. What is conflict? Interpersonal conflict, according to communication scholars William Wilmot and Joyce Hawker, include 4 elements. It is an expressed struggle between at least 2 interdependent people who perceive incomparable goals, scarce resources, or interference from others, and who are attempting to achieve specific goal. You know, interpersonal conflict. Interpersonal conflict is an expressed struggle between these 2 interdependent people who perceive incomparable scarce resource or interference in the achievement of their goals. Conflict elements. you know, you are in conflict when your emotion become aroused, as evidenced by an increased heart rate, increased heart rate, muscle tension, and raised voice. You know you are in conflict. Conflict can occur whether the issue is about something personal or non-personal, or about something outside the relationship. But looking at the elements of a conflict can help you understand why conflict occurs and how to manage it. First, unexpressed struggle. You typically don't know that someone is upset with you until he or she expresses displeasure with a remark or by a nonverbal behavior such as a glare, silly facial expression, or emotional laden tone of a voice. The intensity of a conflict often correlate with the partner's perceptions of the importance of their unmet needs or goals. A conflict evolves in a relationship. It has the potential to escalate in physical abuse, especially in our most intimate relationship. You know that. One research team estimates that 50 to 60% of US households have experienced at least minor forms of violence. There is evidence that in 1 out of every 6 romantic relationship, one partner has a stalk to the other. Experts surmise that one reason violence is so prevalent in many relationships is that people don't have the skills to manage conflict. They don't know how to effectively express their relational struggle. Second, between at least 2 independent people. By interdependent, we mean that people are dependent on each other. What one person does or says affects the other. The conflict that weigh most heavily on us are those with people with whom we interact most frequently. And as the old expression, it takes two to tango, struggle. It takes at least 2 people to have interpersonal conflict. You can certainly have interpersonal conflict within yourself, but interpersonal conflict is between you and at least one other person. Third, incomparable goods, scarce resource, and interference. Conflict often happens because two people want the same thing, but both can't have it. Or what one person wants is opposite of what the other wants. When the resource, time, money, or something else are scarce, tension is more likely. Whether it is a battle between from spouse, a former spouse who both want to custody of a children, or an argument over whether you spend the holiday with your parents or with your spouse or partner's parents. Conflict happens when goals are conflicting or incomparable. Too little of something exists, or someone is blocking what you believe is rightfully yours. Another conflict element, achieving a goal. People in conflict want something. As we note, many conflict occurs because both people cannot or perceive that they can't achieve their own goal. Figuring out what you and the other person want more of or less of provides a starting point to getting to the end of conflict. Okay. Another thing is conflict trigger. Conflict trigger means a common perceived cause of interpersonal conflict. So now you know what conflict is, but what triggers it? What trigger it? Here are some of the most common conflict. Criticism, feeling entitled, perceived lack of fairness, more perceived cost than weird, different perspective, stress and lack of rest, dialectical tension. So we'll look at the one each other. Criticism. Receiving criticism is one of the most frequently mentioned conflict triggers. One study found that young people were more likely to reject criticism from family elders, parents or grandparents than from non-family elders. Another study found that some husbands have a heightened sensitivity to what they perceive as criticism from women, not just their wives in particular, but women in general. That is, some men have a bias for treating any comment from any female as negative. This sensitivity to criticism has been described as empathy inaccuracy. The greater their empathic inaccuracy, the more likely husbands were to respond to their wives with verbal aggression. If husband is insecure about his relationship with others, especially women, he may be more likely to lash out verbally when receiving negative comments from women. Feeling entitled. If we believe we are entitled to something, whether something is a good grade in a class, a new car, or a relationship with someone, and we are denied going what we think is ours, then conflict is like a result. Received lack of fairness. If you believe we have not been treated fairly or equitably, conflict is likely. It's children make while playing with each other. Playing with the others, they say that it's mine, not yours. That's not fair, they said that. It's similar. Those same sentiments fear conflict between adults as well as international conflicts between nations. More perceived cost than reward. Another trigger for conflict escalation in relationship occurs when one person feels that he or she is getting less out of the relationship than the other person. Different perspective. We know that, right? Different perspective. Researcher Lawrence Carter found that regardless of whether couples are homosexual, gay, or lesbian, several topics or issues serve as conflict trigger. Power. Who's in charge? Social issue. Social issues such as politics and religion. Yeah? Personal flaws such as using drug or alcohol, smoking, or being lazy. Distrust, right? Concern about whether one person is telling the truth. Intimacy, difference about the frequency and timing of sex. And personal distance as evidenced by the amount of time each person commits to the relationship. Couples argue about other things such as money, but money conflicts are often really about power. those big six: power, social issue, personal flow, distrust, intimacy, personal distance. It's a power, it's a big six, appear to be common conflict themes across a wide variety of relationships. Another thing is stress and lack of rest. When you are not at your physical best, when you're tired, stressed, or overworked, it may be wise to steer clear of situations that are likely to trigger disagreement, right? Dialectical tension. Dialectical tension stems from people's need or desire for two things at the same time. Dialectical tension means tension arising from a person's need for two things at the same time. So, being separate and connected, you may have two classical dialectical tension experienced in many relationships. First is the being separate and connected. Second is the feeling of being open and closed. You may have a desire to be both separate from other people and connected to them at the same time. We want our freedom, but we also want the comfort, predictably, and convenience of having someone who is a consistent part of our life. You may feel personal dialectical tension because you want both things at the same time. To have your freedom and to be close to the other person, right? Feeling of being open and closed. A second common dialectical tension is that we want and need various degree of openness and closeness in our relationship. We want to share and disclose our thoughts and feelings, but we also want our privacy and secrecy. Okay. So, we look at the conflict as a process. We're gonna look at that. Conflict as a process. The most relational disagreement have a source, a beginning, a middle, and end, and aftermath. That's a process. Source, prior conditions. Source, prior condition. The first phase in the conflict process is the one that sets the stage for disagreement. It begins when you become aware of a difference between you and another person. The difference may stem from your role, expectation, perception, goals, or resource. In the previous example, no, okay. Kathy and Brad is a Kathy and Brad are couple. Suddenly, for no apparent reason, Kathy's partner Barb brusquely storms into the room and shouted, "I can't stand it anymore. We have to talk about who does what around here." Kathy was taken completely off guard. She had no idea her partners felt upset about the division of household chores. The Bob perceived that she and Kathy played different roles in carrying out the whole household. In interpersonal relationships, many potential conflict triggers may be smaller things below the surface. It may take some time before they flare up into overt conflict. It's likely that it is not just one conversation or issue that triggers conflict. Multiple conflict. Tripwires may contribute to a conflict episode. Beginning frustration awareness. At this stage, at least one of you becomes aware that the difference in the relationship are increasing problematic. You may begin to energy in self-talk, noting that something is wrong and creating frustration. Perhaps you realize that you won't be able to achieve an important goal, or that someone else has the resource you need to achieve it. Or you may become aware of difference in perception. Greg knew that Kathy's family always spent their weekend relaxing. All the members of Barb's family, in contrast, pitched in on weekend to get household chores done for the week. Brett may have recognized that difference, even as her frustration level rose. Okay? So becoming aware of a difference in perception does not always lead to increased frustration. But when the difference interfere with something you want to accomplish, your frustration level rises. Rab wanted to get the house clean so that she could turn her attention to studying for a test she had the next day. Kathy's apparent indifference to helping Prof achieve that goal was a conflict trigger. Middle. Middle is active conflict. When you bring your frustration to the attention of others, a conflict becomes an achieve expressed struggle. If a frustration remains only as a thought and the conflict is passive, not active, active conflict does not necessarily mean that the difference are expressed with shouting or emotional intensity. Although research suggests that if it is unmanaged, interpersonal conflict can escalate to interpersonal violence. An expression of a disagreement may be either verbal or non-verbal. Calmly asking someone to change an attitude or behavior to help you achieve your goal is a form of achieved conflict. So is kicking your brother under the table when he started to reveal your secret to the rest of the family. Okay? Communication, both interpersonal and intrapersonal, helps to address issues that may lead to conflict. Kathy was not aware of the division of a labor problem until Barb stormed into the room demanding a renegotiation. Barb had been aware of her frustration for some time, but had not acted on it. Many experts advocate not waiting until your frustration level escalates to peak intensity before you approach someone with your conflict. Unexpressed frustration tends to erupt like soda in a can that has just been shaken. Being aware of a potential conflict triggers can help you identify a conflict before it becomes active. And conflict process and resolution. When you begin to try to manage conflict, it has progressed to the resolution stage. Of course, not all conflict can be neatly resolved. Couples who divorce, budding business partners who dissolve their cooperation, or former lovers who go their separate ways have all found solutions, even though they may not be amicable ones. After Barb's outburst, she and Kathy were able to reach workable compromise about the division of their household labor. Kathy agreed to clean the house every other week. Bob's promised not to expert her to do on weekend. After mass follow-up. As as the late Yogi Berra once said, it ain't over till it's over. After conflict has been resolved, the follow-up stage involved dealing with hurt feeling or managing simmering grudge and checking with the other person to confirm that the conflict has not retreated into the frustration awareness stage. So Friday, after their conversation, Kathy proudly showed up the spotless apartment to Bob when she came home from class. Bob responded with a grin and quick hug, and privately resolved to get up early on Sunday morning so that she could go out to get Kathy pastries before she awoke. You understand the conflict process. Conflict is constructive. Conflict. Interpersonal conflict focuses attention on problems that may have to be solved, clarifies what may need to be changed, focus attention on what is important to you and your partner, clarifies who you are and what your values are, helps you learn more about your partner, keeps the relationship interesting, and strengthens relationship by increasing your confidence that you can manage disagreement. Okay, constructive conflict is conflict that help build new insight and establishing new patterns in a relationship. But destructive conflict is conflict that dismantles rather than strengthens relationship. Okay? So, conflict myth. Conflict myth. According to one researcher, many of us were raised with 4 myths that contribute to our negative feeling about conflict. Myth first, conflict is always a sign of a poor interpersonal relationship. Myth 2, second, conflict can always be avoided. Conflict always occurs because of a misunderstanding. Conflict can always be resolved. That's conflict methods. Conflict is always a sign of a poor interpersonal relationship. conflict is a normal part of any interpersonal relationship. Although it is true that contrast bickering and snipping can be symptomatic of deeper problems, disagreement do not necessarily signal that the relationship is on the rock. In fact, overly polite, stilted conversation is more likely to signal a problem than periodic disagreement. The free expression of honest disagreement is often a hallmark of a healthy relationship. Assertively and honestly expression idea may mean that a person feels safe and comfortable enough with his or her partners to disagree. Conflict can always be avoided. Research suggests that contentment in marriage related not to the amount of conflict, but to the way in which partners manage it. Conflict is also a normal and productive part of interaction in group deliberations. It is myth that conflict is inherently unproductive and something to be avoided. It happens even in the best of a relationship. Third, conflict always occurs because of a misunderstanding. Problem is they disagree about whose goal is more important. This disagreement, not lack of understanding, is the source of the conflict. Conflict can always be resolved. Consultant, corporate training experts, and authors of self-help books often offer advice about how to resolve conflict so that all will be well, harmony will prevail. Some people claim that with the application of a few skills, how to techniques, conflicts and disappear like a stain from a shut laundry with a bright kind of detergent. This is simply not true. Not all difference can be resolved by listening harder or paraphrasing your partner's message. Some disagreements are so intense and perceptions so fixed that individuals may have to agree to disagree and live with it. Okay? The conflict type. Student conflict misunderstandings. According to communication researchers Gerard Miller and Mark Stenberg, most conflict fit into one of three classic categories. First, hostile conflict triggered by a lack of understanding. Second, simple conflict stemming from different definitions, perceptions, or goals. And third, ego conflict, which occurs when conflict gets personal. Should conflict, misunderstanding, we can say that Will said that let's walk to the store. Seeing, no, it's too far. Let's drive. Will, but the store is closed. Sin said, no, it's not. Will said, yes, it is. It's just a market street. Sin said, oh, you mean the convenience store? Will said, sure, that's exactly what I mean. Sin said, oh, no problem. I thought you mean the supermarket. Sure though means force or make. A sugar conflict occurs when we simply miss the meaning in a message, but unless we clear up the misunderstanding by asking for more information, a real conflict might ensue. So, keep the following strategy in the mind to minimize misunderstanding before they occur. Check your perception. Check your perception. Okay, check your perception. Listen between the lines. Establish supportive rather than a defensive climate for conversation. Avoid evaluating, controlling, using manipulative strategy, being aloof, acting superior, or rigidly asserting that you are always right. Okay? Simple conflict. That means different stance on the issues. Simple conflict stems from difference in idea, definition, perception, or goal. So, to keep simple conflict from escalating into personal attacks, consider the following strategy. Clarify your partner's understanding of the issue and your partner's understanding of the source of the disagreement. Keep the discussion focused on facts and the issue at hand, rather than drifting back to past battles and unrelated personal grievances. Look for more than just the initial solution. Then you and your partner bring to the discussion, generate many options. Another is don't try tackle too many issues at once. To perform the issue tries identify the important issues and work on those. Find the corner of truth in what your partner is saying. Find agreement where you can. If temper begins to flare and conflict is escalating, cool off. Come back to the discussion when you and your partner are fresh. Last thing is ego conflict. Conflict gets personal. Ego conflict in which the original issue is ignored as partners attack each other's self-esteem. You are a loser driver. That's what a messy roommate you are. Must you always have a music blaring? Each of these accusation is a candidate for trigger in ego conflict. After the first personal attack is mounted, counteract is likely as each person in the conflict becomes more defensive about his or her position. Okay. That's a strategy. There are strategies to consider when conflict becomes personal. Try to steer the ego conflict to simple conflict. Stay focused on issue. Here's the problem. Rather than the personality, you are problem. That's not. To make the issue a problem to be solved rather than better to be won. And write down what you want to say. It may help you clarify your point. And you and your partner can develop your ideas without interruption. When things get personal, make a vow not to reciprocate. Use iMessage that we talked about that. We learned that I feel uncomfortable and threatened when we yell at each other rather than you message, okay? You're such a little avoid contempt. Avoid contempt. To be contemptuous is to roll your eyes and sarcastically intone, oh, that's brilliant to something your partner has said. Research has found that happy and satisfied couple rarely express contempt. That doesn't mean there is no teasing, but caustic and corrosive, contemptuous conversation is typically not pleasant between people in a satisfying relationship. Okay, we're done. Next time, we're gonna learn the conflict and power. Okay, have a good day. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.